Hi guys, back again with me. I'm Desfer. On this video, I will do my project again is active listening skills. Okay, let's start. Part 1, answer the question correctly. 1. What does SETI stand for according to Professor Hilary Twain? According to Professor Twain, SETI stands for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. 2. Why does Professor Hilary say that many people misunderstand the purpose of SETI? People often confuse SETI with the search for UFOs or flying saucers. So she clarifies that her work is not about looking for aliens on Earth or in people's neighborhoods. 3. Does Professor Hillary personally believe in UFOs? Explain her opinion. No, she does not personally believe in them. She views the classic notion of UFOs, aliens flying around Earth in silver disks, as separate from the scientific search for intelligent life elsewhere in the galaxy. 4. What do scientists actually believe about intelligent life? They believe that intelligent life exists somewhere in our solar system or in another galaxy. 5. Why does Mike feel surprised by Hillary's opinion about UFOs? Mike is surprised because he assumes that believing in UFOs is a requirement for someone whose job is to search for extraterrestrial intelligence. 6. Explain the difference between believing in intelligent extraterrestrial life and believing in UFOs visiting Earth. Believing in intelligent life is the conviction that such life exists somewhere in the vast universe. Believing in UFOs especially implies that those beings are effectively visiting Earth and flying in our atmosphere. Stephen, how did Professor John Turgeon explain the difficulty of searching for extraterrestrial life? He compared it to finding a needle in a haystack and used an analogy involving a snail to illustrate the immense distance and slow pace of exploration. 8. What does the snail in Alaska analogy represent? It represents the staggering extents of space and how difficult it is to find others when movement and communication are limited by physical and temporal constraints. 9. What active methods did scientists use during the 1960 and 1970 to search for extraterrestrial life? Scientists actively sent signals out into space, launched probes with messages, photos, and music on picture discs, and even included a map showing how to find Earth. 10. Why did some people think that sending signals into space could be dangerous? There was a concern that extraterrestrial beings might not be friendly. 11. Why has SETI adopted a more passive strategy in recent years? It is more practical logistically. Instead of guessing where others are, researchers sit back and listen for incoming signals. 12. According to Hillary, which is listening for signals more practical than sending them? Hillary explained that advanced civilizations are likely already emitting their own signals, like radio and TV waves, and it is easier to detect these than to try and coordinate a two-way connection across vast distances. 13. What kinds of civilizations are SETI researchers hoping to find? They are looking for advanced civilizations capable of long-distance interstellar communication and possibly travel. 14. How have humans already made their presence known to possible extraterrestrial civilizations? Humans have been emanating radio and TV waves into space for about 70 years. 15. What is the meaning of the phrase telltale signs in the context of the interview? In this context, it refers to the detect, detectable evidence of technology such as radio or television waves that would prove a civilization exists. 16. Why does the science from space worry some scientists? It leads some to worry that humans might actually be alone in the universe. 17. Mention two possible explanations Hillary gives for why humans why not detected extraterrestrial civilizations yet. We might be looking in the wrong place and we may not have the technology required to pick up a specific type of broadcasts. 18. What does Hillary suggest about the possible lifespan of advanced civilizations? She suggests they might have a short lifespan because they become technologically advanced enough to destroy themselves through things like environmental damage or nuclear prolifera- prolife- proliferation. Profil, proliferation. 19. Why does Hillary remain optimistic about the existence of intelligent life in the universe? She is optimistic because the universe is strategically large. She notes there are as many galaxies in the observable universe as there are grains of sand on Earth, meaning there is still a lot of real estate left to scan. 20. If Hillary had the chance to meet extraterrestrial beings, what important question would she ask them and why? She will ask how they survive, specifically, she wants to know how they bypass the stage of being able to destroy themselves technologically and how they manage population growth without ruining their environment, challenges humanity is currently facing. Part 2. Write true or false for each statement. 1. SETI scientists mainly spend their time searching for UFOs flying around Earth. False. SETI scientists do not spend their time looking for UFOs. They search for signs of intelligent life in our solar system or in other galaxies. 2. Professor Hillary strongly believes that aliens frequently visit Earth in silver disks. False. Professor Hillary does not believe in the classic notion of UFOs or that aliens are flying about the neighborhood in silver disks. 3. According to Hillary, all SETI scientists believe extraterrestrials have already landed on Earth. False. While all SETI scientists believe intelligent civilizations exist, not all of them believe those beings have ever placed a foot on our planet. 4. Mike explained that SETI researchers regularly communicate with alien using false. Communication is not regular. The distance involved are staggering, making it one of the most difficult tasks for researchers to find any signals at all. 5. The snail in Alaska analogy was used to show how easy to eat, how easy it's to find extraterrestrial life. False. The snail in Alaska analogy was used to show how difficult and slow it is to find a needle in a haystack across such immense distances. 6. During the 1960 and 1970, SETI researchers only listened quietly for signals from space. False. During the 1960 and 1970, scientists took an active stance by putting signals out there are sending probes into space. 7. Scientists never sent any object, music, or photo into space during earlier SETI programs. False. Scientists sent probes into space containing messages, photos, music from Earth, and even a map of how to find us. 8. Hillary says that modern SETI strategies focus mainly on sending stronger radio signals into space. False. In the last 20 years, SETI has taken up a more passive policy, focusing on waiting and listening for signals from other civilizations. 9. SETI researchers are mostly interested in discovering simple organisms such as fungus rather than intelligent civilizations. False. While finding fungus would be nice, SETI researchers are ultimately looking for intelligent civilizations capable of interstellar communication and travel. 10. According to the interview, humans have only been sending radio and television waves into space for about 7 years. False. Humans have been emanating radio and TV waves into space for about 70 years. 11. Hillary believes that every advanced civilization in the universe still exists today. False. Hillary mentions the possibility that advanced civilizations may no longer exist because they might have destroyed themselves. 12. Hillary argues that environmental destructions and overpopulation are impossible problems for advanced civilizations. False. Hillary suggests that environmental damage, nuclear proliferation, and overpopulation are distinct possibilities for why a civilization might have a short lifespan. 13. Mike believes the universe contains fewer galaxies and galaxies than grains of sand on Earth. False. Hillary, not Mike, states that there are as many galaxies in the observable universe as there are grains of sand on Earth. 14. Hillary says that humans have already completely explored the universe and most nearby galaxies. False. Hillary says that we have only scanned our own galaxy and have a lot of real estate left to get to. 15. At the end of the interview, Hillary says that if extraterrestrials contact her, Mike will never hear about it. False. At the end of the interview, Hillary tells Mike that he will be the first to know if E.T. phones her. Part 3. Answer the questions correctly. 1. Why did the mice family have plenty of food inside the house? The human family liked to eat well and kept the house stocked with cheese, ham, crackers, biscuits, and cakes. Additionally, the humans were lazy and didn't sweep up crumbs until the morning, leaving plenty for the mice to pick up at night. 2. Describe the cat that lived with the human family. The cat was a ragdoll with sky blue eyes and dark markings on his nose and paws. To humans, he appeared cute, friendly, and cuddly. 3. Why did the mice consider the cat dangerous? The cat had sharp claws and teeth, and he viewed the mice as toys to stalk and pounce upon. Under his presence, the mouse family began getting smaller rather than larger. 4. Where did the mice hold their family meeting? The mice held their meeting under the floorboards of the boy's bedroom. 5. Why did the boy not tell his father about the mice? The boy secretly liked the mice and thought they were cute. He didn't want his father to set mouse traps. 6. What problem did Great Grandpa Mouse discuss during the meeting? He discussed the existential crisis caused by the cat, which had become a deadly threat to the entire mouse family. 7. What solution did Jimmy suggest to solve the problem? Jimmy suggested tying a bell to the cat's tail so that the mice would hear a tingling sound whenever the cat approached and could scamper for cover. 8. Why did Jimmy not want to tie the bell to the cat himself? Jimmy never intended to volunteer. He made the suggestion but was terrified of the cat and didn't want to risk his life. 9. How did Jimmy finally manage to place the bell on the cat? He found a wooden fire truck with bells that the boy played with. He carefully pulled the string of the toy to the sleeping cat and looped a sailor's knot around the tip of the cat's tail. 10. What was the final decision made by the surviving mice at the end of the story? The mice held a vote and decided to move to the seaside where they eventually lived happily in a cafe. 11. Why did the little kid go think he was able to take care of himself? The kid had growing horns that made him feel like a grown up Billy goat capable of taking care of himself. So he chose to stay and nibble to tender grass instead of following the flock. 12. Why did the kid ignore his mother's call? He was too busy nibbling on the tender grass and felt he didn't need to follow the flock. 13. What happened after the kid realized the flock had gone? He realized he was all alone and began to shiver with fears as he thought of the terrible wolf. He then started running wildly over the field, bleating for his mother. 14. Describe the atmosphere when the kid was left alone in the field. The sun was sinking, long shadows were creeping over the ground, and a chilly wind was making scary noises in the grass. 15. Where did the kid finally encounter the wolf? He encountered the wolf near a clump of trees. 16. Why did the kid ask the wolf to play music before eating him? He wanted to dance and be merry for as long as he possibly could before he died. 17. Why did the wolf agree to play a tune for the kid? The wolf liked the idea of a little music before his meal. 18. How did the shepherd dogs know the wolf was nearby? The wolf's piping music carried forth through the still evening air, and the dogs recognized it as the song the wolf sings before a feast. 19. What happened when the shepherd dogs hear the wolf's music? The dogs picked up their ears and raced back to the pasture to find the wolf. 20. Why did the wolf call himself a fool at the end of the story? He realized he was a fool for playing the piper to please a kid instead of sticking to his butcher's trade and eating his prey immediately. Part 4. Make a note. The cat that went tingling. Topic: a mouse family seeks a warning system against a dangerous cat. Body paragraph: to stop the cat from pouncing on them, a mouse named Jimmy successfully ties a bell from a toy fire truck to the sleeping cat's tail. The tingling sound alerts the mice whenever the cat is near. Conclusion: the mice eventually moved to a seaside cafe. The story shows that while ideas are easy, execution is difficult. The wolf and the kid. Topic: a young goat learns the danger of overconfidence and distraction. Body paragraph: a kid goat ignores his mother to stay in the pasture. Concerned by a wolf, he tricked the wolf into playing a tune so he can dance. The music attracts shepherd dogs who chase the wolf away. Conclusion: the wolf realized he was a fool to be distracted. The moral is to never let anything turn you from your purpose. Okay, guys, that's all for me. Thank you for